I'm not saying that it's not necessarily correct. I'm saying the thinking that you would say that and put it into a comment means that probably initially, the initial vulnerability wasn't all in 100% vulnerable.
That's what I would think would be if someone's using your most vulnerable moments against you or you know, just like if you came to me and you were like, when this happens, I feel like less of a man. And then we got in an argument and I was like, well, you already feel less of a man. Right?
As long as you're still putting up that resistance and thinking that first of all, you're not going to change them that way. But as long as you're still doing that, you're not going to know in your heart for absolute sure that you're being abused. You're doing the thing. So,
I mean, I agree with you. And you explaining that, I can see where men get confused if someone's like, I'm stressed. And then he's like, get over it. Because if you just say, I'm stressed, I mean, he really shouldn't say just get over it anyway. But it seems like you're trying to figure out a way to just get unstressed and you're not actually trying to have a deep emotional conversation. So like, you didn't really set him up to talk about deep emotions by just being like, I'm stressed and I'm trying to be vulnerable with you, right? Like to set him up for a deep emotional conversation would be to say, I'm stressed because I'm not getting the things done and it makes me feel bad about myself and that, you know, it makes my self-esteem go down or my self-worth or whatever. You know, that is a way to open up the conversation. And if he still says, suck it up and get over it, then you can be like, that really hurt. Like, I'm trying to be vulnerable with you and, you know, really talk about this. And it hurt to feel like you're kind of dismissing it with what you're saying. And if he still is like, just get over it, then you need to probably end the conversation at that point. And it could be like you said that he's just had to repress his own stuff for a while and maybe he will eventually get over it. But I did want to ask you because some women said that, and women do this to men as well too. So I'm not saying it just goes one way, but if someone is trying to be vulnerable and is actually truly being vulnerable and those things get held against them or they're not ever met, no matter how long the time's gone on with someone trying to actually empathize with them, what do you think should happen?
Like what should they do in that case?
Because a lot of women were like, I'm vulnerable and he just uses it against me later.
It feels like if you say that, then you're not vulnerable, right? Not truly at the bottom vulnerable, right? Because again, it's like the amount, again, I'm not saying that it's not necessarily correct. I'm saying the thinking that you would say that and put it into a comment means that probably initially, the initial vulnerability wasn't all in 100% vulnerable, right? Because it was like, let me see what he does, but I expect already that he's not going to respond to this correctly, right? When you have that expectation on someone ahead of time, then it's not good. Because again, I think part of it is just like you said, is it's about focusing on yourself. Because it doesn't really matter how he responds. You have a certain amount of pride in yourself in being that I don't allow people to not allow me to be vulnerable. I'm going to be myself and who I am and who I want to express myself as, regardless of how the reaction is. Because I'm not waiting for a reaction. And I'm not doing this for a reaction, right? And when you have that mindset, then it doesn't. Then the question answers itself, right? Because if you have that mindset, number one, you're probably going to get different responses than what you're getting, right? And number two, if you're not, you already know what to do. Like you will know, because you won't be coming from a place of fear or insecurity. You'll be coming from a place of knowing who you are and what you're doing and what you represent, and it won't be, you won't have to answer that question. You see what I'm saying? Like, because you already know the answer.
Yeah, I think you're right that what you just explained is the majority. But I do want to say that there probably are some women still too who are saying like, this makes me have like lower self-worth, or they are being vulnerable and they are saying the things and men are using those against them. The things that they bring up. Like, well, you don't even have any confidence in yourself, or like, that's what I'm talking more about. And I'm like, I don't think it's a majority, but I do think it still happens. And so I guess based on your answer that you just gave too, it would be knowing that you are being vulnerable and you should have respect for yourself and leave the situation after enough time, like that's what I would think would be if someone's using your most vulnerable moments against you or you know, just like if you came to me and you were like, when this happens, I feel like less of a man. And then we got in an argument and I was like, well, you already feel less of a man. Right. That's what I feel like some of these women are talking about being used against them, right? Like, and so that's more what I was. I do agree. Like I said, I'm glad you explained what you explained because I do think it's not black and white like that. But there are some extreme versions, like I just mentioned. And I think people need to know the best way to handle those things.
And again, let the person, no one can use something against you if you allow them to, right? Because then it can't actually be used. So even in the argument later, he's like, well, you have low self-worth anyway. And then you just say, you're right. I said
Which I agree with that, but it hurts to hear the person that you're closest with say that. And so you're right.
But take the fight out of the, you know what I'm saying, by continuing to be who you are. And then look, if you're doing that, right? And this is why I'm saying this. I'm not saying this because I'm trying to be heartless or trying to like. I would give men completely different advice, right? In the sense that I would tell them, it doesn't matter if she's like, you be empathetic no matter what and validate and listen to her emotions. But the reason why I'm saying this, right, to women is because, look, if you're doing this and you're not letting him use it against you because you're not putting up a fight or a resistance to it and not trying to protect yourself, then you're not going to need anyone to answer the question of what, like, if you're literally just being completely 100% raw and not trying to protect yourself in any way, and you're just getting hurt, you already know what to do. Like, and you won't have any, you won't need any second opinion on it because you will know 100% what to do. You don't like this, and you don't want to be where you're not liked, and you're not, right. It's like the reason why there's a debate about it, or why there needs to be an opinion, is because you're not 100% doing the thing to know for sure. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, I feel like there might be some, but if you're 100% not protecting yourself, just being 100% vulnerable, and you're getting reactions like that, which again, the chance of you getting reactions like that are much less. I mean, that's why I said in that video, you really do have to be an evil man or a bad man. Like, at that point, you know that this man is an evil man. He is a bad man.
If he like continues to do
it. Because you're not showing you're not giving anything to fight against, right? It's just abuse at that point, right? Because if I completely come to you defenseless, right? And I talk to you, and then you beat up on me, and I still stay defenseless. I don't try to protect myself at all, right? And then later in a different conversation, you beat up on me some more. And again, I'm not protecting myself, and I'm not disagreeing with you about what, like, I'm letting you kick me as much as you're going to kick me when I'm down. That's abuse at that point. Like, there's no question in your mind about it. When you fight back, that's when you start to question, well, did I do something wrong? Did I but when you're just like, no, I'm going to, that's why I'm giving this advice, is because then it makes it crystal clear, and you don't ever have to waste another minute or another discussion or argument because you already know. But as long as you're still putting up that resistance and thinking that first of all, you're not going to change them that way. But as long as you're still doing that, you're not going to know in your heart for absolute sure that you're being abused. You know what I'm saying? So.
Better than perfect, we stand.